Good evening. Would like to call to order this meeting of the Norfolk School Committee for Wednesday, September 11th, 2013 at 7:05 p.m. As we begin with all of our meetings, we start with our mission statement. The Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. Roll call.
Jeff Chalmers.
Mark Flaherty.
Kelly Peterson.
Sean Dooley.
Ingrid Alerny.
I would like to Sorry. I would like to begin this meeting with a moment of silence in remembrance of 9/11, of everyone that lost their lives on that day and all the soldiers, airmen, and sailors and Marines that have died in the battle against terrorism ever since then. Thank you. As we begin with all of our meetings, we have public comment. If you would like to speak and have anything to say, please raise your hand or come up to the microphone and introduce yourself. Anyone? So I'll skip all the rest of my speech that this is being recorded and all that good stuff. We don't have any correspondence tonight, so we'll move right into my report. And I would like to begin. We have the honor of two of the Girl Scouts who have done their, is this your gold? Silver. They're working on their silver award, and they've created the Norfolk History Wall for this Freeman Kennedy School, and that's going to be unveiled Friday at 1 p.m.? 1:30 p.m. Okay. I have it in my book, I promise. And so Katie McMahon and Eleanor Spellman, if you guys would like to come up and they're going to do a quick little slideshow presentation about the History Wall.
I'm Katie McMahon, and my name is Eleanor Spellman. We're ninth graders at the Hayfield Regional High School, and we decided to do the history wall for our Girl Scout Silver Award. The Girl Scout Silver Award is the highest award that a Girl Scout can receive at our current level, and we are cadets. When we first started this project, it took a lot of work. We first had to start with fundraising, which we made t-shirt bags and sold at basketball games and the NCL gala. Like Eleanor said, it was a lot of hard work, but it was worth it because it's going to be unveiled Friday, September 13th at 1:30 p.m.
The people who are on the history wall are all of the people who are named after something in the Freeman Centennial or the H. Olive Day School. So, for example, Thomas Delmarco was named after the H. Olive Day School library, and like the McBride Auditorium.
Washburn Hall in the Freeman Centennial School. And all the people that you see on the slideshow, they all made a good contribution to the Norfolk Public School system. And also on the history wall, we have the schools of Norfolk. We have the Center School, the Central School, the Alvin J. Freeman School, the Freeman Centennial School, the H. Olive Day, and the Freeman Kennedy School.
We would like to thank Mrs. Altham Hickey and Mrs. O'Connell because they helped us so much in this project, and without them, it would not have been it would not have been such a success as it is.
We'd also like to thank all the people who have been nominated or all the family members who helped us through helping with coming up with when they were born or what they actually did to the school. They really helped us a lot. It was really fun doing it.
We would also like to thank the NCL and the Norfolk Cultural Council because they gave us grants that really put the project in motion.
That is our presentation.
Thanks, guys. I just wanted to thank you, girls, for doing this. This has, been something that we've been, when the school was originally designed and built, it was important to the community that we preserve the history of all the schools that have come before and all the people that have done so much for the Norfolk schools. And so we created this history wall, but we had no idea what to do with it and how to create a fitting tribute. And you guys took it over and ran with it, and it's phenomenal, and I can't wait to see the unveiling on Friday. Thank you very much. Do you guys have more work to do? Do you need to zip back out? All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, sure. And you're still too short.
We have taller people here.
I better be careful to
I'm
hit me
not
with
one
it.
of them, but we have taller people here.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kelly's right here. He's like 7 feet tall.
Sitting here watching.
Yao Ming looks up to the sky.
Okay, moving on. Far as the budget is concerned, Ingrid and I have been meeting and just kind of figuring out some things that we're going to need to present to the town regarding the fall town meeting. There have been, obviously, as we all know, we got surprised with 40 additional kindergartners this year. That is taken a huge toll. It added an additional classroom teacher and an additional aide, plus 2 additional floating aides, is something that we did not anticipate. So we're going to need, we want to talk to the town about, hopefully, depending on how free cash works out, hopefully they'll be able to help us balance our budget a little bit with these, new surprises. In addition, last year when we had to cut our budget, one of the things that we had to cut was the beginning of the refurbishing of the HL Day School's fire suppression system. That's something that the selectmen said, provided that there was enough money in the budget in the fall, that was something that they were going to address and put on their capital improvement budget so we can get the rolling on that. There's other capital items that we need, over there, from, updating the fire panel and the hot water heater and, a few other, ancillary items, painting, replacing trim pieces and things like that. Because for the past 5 years, we've had no capital budget. So a lot of these things have had to be let go, and they're starting to get to the critical stage. And so we're going to approach the selectmen, and we realize it's a tight budget, and things are not as rosy as we would hope, but we did finally get approved for the prison mitigation money, and hopefully we'll get approved for it again next year. So that's a little bit of cash flow coming into the town. And I know the town's been working very hard at managing, other departments and keeping everything tight, as the Norfolk schools have as well. And obviously in years going forward, with an additional 40 children this year, if those children will be moving into first grade next year, where there won't be the assistant teacher. So the class size becomes much more important next year, because it'll be we need to get back down to the 21 per our policy maximum, because there won't be a teaching aide in the first grade classrooms. In addition, it's hard to tell because unfortunately, all the census reports aren't completely accurate just because a lot of people, especially new people to town, don't report on their census, their children, even though, it's supposed to be, but that's how we kind of got surprised this year because there was a lot of underreporting of the children, and we had a lot of new people that moved to town that, had never even returned in their census. So we got caught off guard. So hopefully that won't happen again next year, but there is a possibility there's more growth, there's more building. So as that happens, obviously it's going to put more of a strain on the schools. We had a good 6-year run where enrollment was actually steadily decreasing, which made our zero balance budgets possible because we were able to cut out positions and assistants. But now with the population increasing again, it becomes very, very, very difficult. And so Kelly will be getting to work on all that fun budget stuff.
Look forward. Not right away, but soon.
A few other things that I had. Signage, I worked with Dr. Alardi and with Lisa Altham-Hickey about some of the signs out here, and I just kind of wanted to discuss this. We're definitely going to be putting a do not enter sign at the end of the parent drop-off loop. And coming, yes. And on the back of that, Chuck Stone asked me to have someone put in, if we could, maybe on the back of that, put in a stop sign so people know once they drop off their kids. There are cars coming both ways the other way. Sometimes they drop off their kids, they're looking back and they just kind of pull out. So if that could be a stop sign, we'll put a line there. In addition, a right turn only, because it's hard if cars are coming from the other way, especially trucks dropping things off, cars crossing over. He says, there's been a few near misses, so he'd like to have that. Lisa and I talked about having a one-way sign put into at the other end where you enter down by the football fields, baseball fields, a one-way sign so people know that this is where you enter, because it's kind of with the parking lot and the bus loop there, it gets a little confusing. I mean, not the bus loop, but the drop-off loop. And then I'm not exactly sure how to phrase the final one that Lisa and I were talking about was a do not pass, because one of the problems that we do have is parents will drop off their child at the back of the line and then pull around, and it's, other kids are being dropped off, doors are being opened on both sides, kids are getting out into the road, and some of these cars are, I saw one this afternoon when I was picking my daughter up. This lady just flew, all the way down from the other end, and the teacher jumped out and had her stop and, arguing with her and everything like that. And it's just very, very dangerous. And this lady was going, pretty quickly. So, so that's, that's a public, that's a safety of our children thing. So those are sort of the things. Additionally, I would like to swap, I'm just throwing out a lot, so then we'll talk about it. Swap the reserve parking for superintendent and the visitor sign, because right now it goes visitors with an arrow, and then it's assistant principal, principal, superintendent, and then there's 5 spots, and then there's another visitor with an arrow pointing this way. So it doesn't, it's kind of hard to tell what's reserved for the visitor parking. So that'd be easy. The poles are already there. We could just swap the signs out. And then the other thing, and I talked to Bob Bullock about it, so I have to do some measuring. Lisa wanted to know, and it might become more cumbersome than it's worth. All of the handicap spots are out here in front of this building. She wanted to see if there would be a possibility to put, there's 7 right here, 3 down on the other, the new parking lot on the other side, which is kind of equidistant. So that way it'll free up some more parking for either volunteers or teachers, and also break up if, people are needing to be, are parking handicapped and they're coming into this side of the building as opposed to the other side of the building. That's the 2 aspects of that is, one, by code, this is what Bob Bullock was telling me, is it has to be the closest spots to the front door. So he goes, so we're just basically going to have to measure where the last 3 spots are comparative to the first 3 spots in the other spot. I think if they're close, 6 of one, half dozen the other, I think we'll probably be okay. Then the other issue would be the cost in relining, because obviously, if 3 spots, it really will take up about 3 handicap spots, actually take up about 5 non-handicap spots, so we'd have to get those relined and also, obviously, reline the ones out in front. So, it might be cost prohibitive, but, we'll figure out if it works.
With the signage and the relining, does that come out of our budget, or is that the town taking care of?
That would be our budget,
Okay.
so. The signage is, we actually work with DPW on that. I mean, they're made at the prison, and so they're,
The painting and the relining of the parking is more expensive.
right, exactly. The signs are minimal,
And the moving of the handicap spots is just to get more parking up front?
More parking up front and also to split the handicap, so, when.
So if someone's coming into that side of the building, they're not parking in the handicap spot
Right.
here and walking all the way to the second
Right.
entrance.
Right.
So you have
Right.
them at both.
And if someone comes in off of Boardman and they come in, especially like for elections and things like that, and they don't know necessarily which entrance, or where the handicap spots are, if they come in off of Boardman in the first entrance, they get to the parking lot, there's no handicap entrance, they might not necessarily know how to get, or even where handicap parking is, and how to get over to it. Because there's no way to get from there over to there without going back onto Boardman and back all the way around. So, any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, likes, dislikes?
Well, the signage, I'm all for it, because I brought that up after the election, because I saw so many cars zipping up that, the other way, and I'm like, school's in session, there's kids coming, and these people are just zipping wherever they want to go.
Right.
And it was crazy. So I'm all for the signage, we'd have to, with the relining, we'd have to get quotes on that.
Oh,
right?
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'd like to see what companies are going to charge.
Oh, yeah,
But the
we wouldn't do any of this without bringing it back from the school committee to see, all right, it's going to be, $500, all right, it's worth it, it's going to be 5,000, all right, never mind.
If we put it out for bid, are we locked into doing it? Or
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. And that wouldn't, and it wouldn't, I can't imagine it would cost over $10,000, so it wouldn't have to be state bid. It would be just a regular local quotes. So there wouldn't be, you don't have to go through the whole state procurement process, which is a nightmare. And it might not even be doable. I mean, once I run a tape measure on it, if that's 30 feet further away from the door than the other ones, then we're kind of stuck from a code standpoint. But I just, Lisa brought it up to me, and I was like, you know what, that makes sense that people drive in here, and there's nowhere for them to park from a handicap standpoint. So, from that whole entrance. Okay,
It's worthy of pursuing it?
okay. All right. Jeff? I agree. Let's see. Boop, boop, boop. Building cleaning maintenance. This will be I'll be as politically correct as I can on this one. Right before the beginning of school, Cole Bushnell, the fire chief, and Bob Bullock, the inspector, came to my office and said, we want to show you some things. And so they, basically kidnapped me and brought me over to KP Middle School. And we did a full walkthrough there of, all their classrooms and the cleanliness and how the school is kept and everything like that. And then we did a tour of both the, HLJ and the Freeman. And so they were just pointing out the differences. I mean, it's roughly about the same size, and they have a little more staffing, which we all know we need, that got cut from our budget. But just from a management style and having plans in place, they have great, charts and graphs and a great program, and their maintenance runs flawlessly. They painted the entire school over the summer.
Yeah, I did the walkthroughs on both.
And as comparative to, our schools where, HLJ has, pieces of the trim on the outside falling off. There's, there's, still smudges and tapes on all the windows, same with here, there was dust, over there, there's, a bunch of things that are rusted and things like that. So one of the things that Ingrid's started working on and has addressed is creating a management ticket system, where everything comes in, through maintenance to create, where it's a ticket, so everything's accountable and it gets assigned to different groups and things like that. But one of the other things we were talking about was we had the consultant come in and do a, short-term and long-term plan on building maintenance for both schools. And what I think we should probably do is have him come back and do more of a detailed follow-up and some analysis on how our management of our resources can be maximized now from a day-to-day operational standpoint, because it's not happening. I mean, the difference between this school, which is 1-year-old, and the King Philip Middle School was dramatic. And it would have to be for the fire chief and the building inspector to be bothered enough by it.
I did talk with Jerry, who was the consultant we brought in, and he is coming back to take a look. There were some challenges definitely this summer, cleaning the new school. The floors last year were never appropriately waxed, so they had to strip them down and do a full 3 coats on all the floors to get them up to code, which took longer than expected. We were also had a custodian, full-time custodian at the HOD retire, and that position was not replaced until September, so they were down a full staff person, and there were some vacations. But we do need to look at a better way to manage the staffing and make sure that all the projects get complete. We did have some things that weren't completed that we have worked out a schedule that will be done over the next couple of weeks in the evening rotations. So we were down staffing, but we did talk about bringing in Jerry to try to look at improving efficiency with the resources and stuff that we do have. So we're looking at an online ticket system. The system that he is using where he is also has preventative maintenance regularly scheduled in, so that when their maintenance staff comes in the morning, they print out their ticket of what needs to be done, and if ballasts need to be changed or filters those are scheduled throughout the year and automatically assigned. So we're looking for ways that we can save time and resources, and also better track when issues are presented, if there's an issue with the boiler or somebody puts a ticket in, how long it takes a response, so we that have that documentation. So that's something that we're also looking at.
Good, because I think it's imperative that we, guard the public's trust, from a money standpoint. I mean, it's much less expensive to keep things pristine than it is to let them deteriorate and having to replace them. And I think that's one of the goals and the focuses that we really need to hammer home and make sure we get systems and processes in place to make sure that these things, are taking place. Because, it's, you let something go 2 or 3 years, next thing you know, it becomes, a little problem becomes a big problem.
So you mentioned that the other schools have possibly more resources to cover
They
this?
do have more staffing,
Is that-
and that's something that we had in the budget initially, an extra .5 custodian for
Right.
Freeman Kennedy that was cut. So I think looking at that, I have all the numbers from Liz, and I can bring it to the budget subcommittee again about their square footage and their staffing ratios.
Yeah.
But they do have, not significantly more, but they had 4.5 custodians, 2 full-time during the day, 1 being a head custodian, and then 2.5 at night, where we only have the 3.5 here. Pretty comparable size buildings. Again, we were down a full-time person all summer at HOD that has fewer to start with. So, but there are things that we can do to improve the efficiencies, definitely. I think we know better what this new school is going to need to be cleaned, and can look at how we're approaching that. And from a logistical standpoint, are there ways that we could do it that would be, more efficient with the time that we have? So I think we can look at both of those things over the course of the budget process.
Do you think it's severe enough to bring it as an item to the town meeting, along with the other?
I would really like to have Jerry, the consultant that we had that did the long-range plan, take a look at it first, so that I can give you better feedback on that. I mean, I definitely think there's a need for more staffing, but I'd like to have more information before we bring it forward.
Okay.
Jeff, you said you did a walkthrough of all of them as well.
Yeah,
So,
they did a great job. I mean, the high school had some concerns, but it's part of the building issues that they had.
right.
Everything overall was really good. I mean, and they're very thorough the way they do things. So I didn't have a chance to walk through with these schools. Sometimes it has to do with staffing, but you can always get better in what you
Right.
do. So I look forward to actually seeing what the report does and what the consultant has to say.
I was going to say, and I think it's just, basic, not to, what the heck, I'll just say it. From a leadership standpoint, I think it starts from the top down, and I think things have been done, a certain way here in Norfolk for a long time that may not be efficient and aren't necessarily the best. And just you go over to the middle school, just the sense of pride, and, I had one of the custodians come up and, oh, look, we did this, 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 and this. And, you walk into the building, and it was, a day people were off. And, one of the custodians, saw us come in, came right up to us, found out who we were, radioed it into, the head custodian and to the, the principal. So, I mean, it was just, great communication and, on top of the thing. And so they said, one of our main roles is security. And, they take that very seriously. And so, those sort of things. And I think it's, it's not just, management, but it's culture, and that's going to take a while to develop, and especially in a new school. But, I think these are things that, we need to, address now and say, all right, this looks better. Let's mirror something that's looks more successful.
I completely agree. I think they're at a different point than we are. I think they're, had some time to basically work together. I think we're still transitioning. So.
And I definitely think that our director of facilities, Toby, and I have talked about getting the team together to kind of look at what went on this summer and to try to brainstorm together. And I think building some teamwork and collaboration among that group will also help us better identify where we can better support people and where we can better plan our time.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. Along that same line, landscaping.
Wow. Difference. What a difference.
This school, brand new school, horrendous.
Yeah.
There's, the roads on the way in, is, weeds are as tall as the trees.
I mean, the opening of the school is embarrassing.
I've had, as I told Lisa today, I've had, I get some bizarre complaints, but by far the majority of the complaints I've heard this year were the grounds of the school, that there's just weeds everywhere. You can't even see the name, Freeman Kennedy out front. There's just weeds that have been pulled out and thrown on the ground in the back. Pretty much all the beds are in bad shape. Sections of the areas aren't mowed. The fields, which, the very first baseball field is, the infield has been completely overgrown with weeds. And I did a walkthrough last Monday with Bob McGee, director of DPW, and, he's like, this is our area.
Okay.
And we're trying to do it. We've been, unfortunately, hyper-focused on roads this year.
Okay.
And so some things have, slipped through the cracks. They're actually going to town, they have a subcontractor that does a lot of this, which, I think ideally they would prefer to bring in-house.
Sure.
And so I know he's working with Jack, and I met with Jack Hathaway to discuss, the possibility of, focusing one of their people, having a full-time person doing grounds between the two schools, and just, and owning the schools. Just having them pristine, and once you get them up, up and they're
Just
perfect,
maintenance. It's all it is.
it's not going to be, a huge thing. But if you have, someone that's, assigned 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, to hit the schools, and, if he's done by noon with the schools, then he can go off and do something else with DPW. And, really focus, around the ball field, the major league field in the front, it's all overgrown with weeds. And it's, it's such a bad example, and the, again, lack of pride. You walk into the schools, for 4 days in a row, it bothers me because every time I do it, and this may be maintenance, maybe, DPW, but, there's a bunch of dried leaves, all at the front entrance, and it's dirty, and, there's cigarette butts and things like that. I think it's hard to have the kids take pride in the school when, the grown-ups aren't taking pride in the school, and I think it all trickles down, and I think kids are more likely to mark on the walls and, leave their trash around when, everything else isn't clean, and it's in, so I think that's something that's, very important. But that being said, the problem being, DPW is, short-staffed, and he's like, I'll do my best, but I can't make any promises. And so what I wanted to do was kind of talk to the committee about seeing about, getting someone else in on just a short-term basis, just to do the weeding, to raise the birch trees in the front, get all the little suckers off of them so you can at least see the school and see the signs. And at least give them, one quick run-through to get caught up, because it just looks so bad. And, he's addressed a few areas that he's definitely going to handle. He's going to regrade, along the trees, along the whole entryway. So he said that's on their, 1-month plan. Anyway, so that's, some of the big things we don't have to worry about. I spoke with the Boy Scouts earlier today, and they would be interested in doing, a project. They can't commit to, as a community service project, we can't commit to doing the whole thing, but if you give us something to do, we'll be glad to do a cleanup.
Great idea.
And do things like that, which will save us money.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple different, landscapers, and they said, you're probably talking, between, $30 and $35 an hour per man hour for guys. Is that,
That's pretty
most of the
consistent.
ones I've talked to came across, that was their numbers.
Yeah.
I'm meeting with another one tomorrow morning, Eastern Landscape, he does the, Mount Auburn Cemetery, he does Wellesley College, he does the Greenway in Boston. And he's, the owner of the company is a good friend of mine, so he's like, and he's a local guy. So he said, let me come out and take a look and see what I can do, from a price standpoint. But I wasn't sure if the committee wanted to, set a number, $1,000 or something like that toward getting something done.
Why don't we take bids? I mean, say,
Yeah.
go to 5 contractors, say, this is what we want it done.
Right.
Give us a bid.
Right.
There
No,
is
there's-
some landscape work that's still to be done with the building project, but that's more that some of the trees that aren't
Right.
are going to be pulled out and replaced. Some of that work's being done, but the weeding in the
Weeding.
beds is not going to be.
No, that's maintenance. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like even in the back courtyard, I mean, where the bricks are, it's this beautiful brick courtyard, and it's, the weeds are coming up through the bricks, and then there's all this gravel, and the weeds are coming down. And then we have these 4 or 5 large planter beds that are just completely, filled with weeds, 6 feet high. And it's just, you're just like, all right, there's got to be, what are these things doing here if this is, if that's all they're going to be?
What was the plan for them in the first place?
well, that's a little bit,
Gray.
it's a little bit gray. DPW does maintain the grounds, but, we don't have the maintenance staff to maintain large garden areas and things like that. So having DPW pick up what they can, we can look for senior volunteers, through the tax credit program, but there wasn't a clear plan for the maintenance of the grounds. It's unrealistic for the custodial staff who we're struggling to keep the buildings clean and open to be maintaining that. We did this summer have a conference that we hosted here at Freeman Kennedy, the LSDO conference, and they paid us $1,000 to rent the building space. So I would think that building revolving fund, we could effectively use some of that money to pay an outside agent to come in and do some landscaping.
Before the school was built, what was there a budget for outside maintenance for Freeman Kennedy?
No,
Freeman Centennial?
no.
The plan was
DPW just did it.
And you're not,
And this year, I mean, they're doing the mowing.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
But-
think there was I'm not being here at the beginning phases of the plan. I think there was an assumption made that some of the maintenance staff here could do some routine maintenance, which is really unrealistic, and at the same time, other people were assuming DPW was going to be maintaining those grounds. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, and as I say, and more to the point, I think whether I buy it or not, there's the confusion over, what the general contractor is still finishing up, because there are some
We have that.
things going on, and, even though, it's been told,
I guess I was just chalking some of this unfinishedness up to the project's not being finished
Right.
yet.
Yeah, and there is some landscape work still to be done, but the weeding in the beds around here, they're done with most of those.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, 'cause-
who's that society in town that does plantings?
the garden club?
The garden club.
I talked to the garden club, and they said, they're not that big.
Mhm.
And they said, we would be happy if you could design a small project for us,
Mhm.
you know, if there was like an entry garden or something like that, and, you know, with some flowers and stuff like that. And, you know, and they said, you know, we would love to work with, you know, if there was an after-school program with kids and help them and do things along those lines. They like that, but they're not, you know, equipped enough to go and weed our entire school.
Well, I realize that
So,
there's,
I was just thrilled that the Boy Scouts said they wanted to do it, so, I mean,
and was there ever intentions for some of the planter boxes for the students to actually use those as part of a gardening
For some
club?
science projects,
Yeah.
it's a possibility, but I don't think there's a developed plan for that. And that's something we can definitely look at.
Yeah.
You know, how we can use some of the resources now for an outdoor garden, things like that.
Mhm.
And I definitely think for little areas like that, we
Yeah.
can access the, you know, senior volunteers, the garden club, things like that. But for the big concern is all the beds surrounding the building, you know, that are growing in, or where the trees are planted and their little suckers coming up. And there isn't a plan for how that's going to be maintained, which is something that I think we need to address this year, and we may need to consider bringing someone in for the short term.
Well,
Landscape company, I don't know if you've talked to them already or not, I don't want to, I can mention.
yeah, I was gonna, go ahead and mention names, it doesn't matter.
Watkins?
Yeah, he's the one that gave me the price of 35 an hour.
Okay. I might be able to get him to lower that.
Yeah, I mean, well, as I say, that's what I told him. I already told him, I'm like, listen, I just wanted to kind of have an idea so we can discuss it. You know, I told him I will try to beat him up, and I'm sure you can try to beat him up, and everyone else, you know.
Oh,
and-
he
and-
knows I can beat him up.
and-
Oh, we're talking about price-wise, okay.
But I think, to Jeff's point, I guess what I was looking at is, kind of get, see if anyone, if we're willing to make a motion to do $1,000, and then we'll go out and get 5 bids. I don't want to wait to get 5 bids and then have it last another month of the grounds looking horrible and the weeds getting 10 times worse, because then the cost is just going to continue to skyrocket.
Well, has anyone done a general budget of what needs to get done and how much it'll cost? 'Cause, I mean, where did $1,000 come from?
I was just saying that
To
that's
get it
what we
started,
took in the building
basically.
rental. of
Which
additional
I
revenue.
understand, I just
Right.
want to try and figure out.
Just from all right, let's see how far, how much we can get for 1,000. Maybe it'll be 750.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine it would be that cheap, but especially elevating some of the trees and things like that. But, all right, that's, we have that as a number, we have that money already not allocated to something. We're not robbing Peter to pay Paul with that money. So,
Yeah. So I mean, I would say that we definitely need to do something in the short term and beg, borrow, and steal for any money that's available to keep up. I think we probably should consider forming a subcommittee to kind of put together a plan
Yep.
that would involve both in-house students and also an assessment of what really needs to be done. And I'd be more than willing to work on that.
Okay, good.
I'd hope
And I think we'll have greater clarity too
Great.
from the building committee as to what exactly is going to be finished in phase 3 of the
Right.
landscape work
I
too.
think we should probably get somebody from Public Works to be present at the subcommittee meeting.
Yep, nope,
If
I was going to say, nope,
possible.
as I say, Bob McGee said he would be more than happy to. I mean, I talked to Bob about, he's like, whatever you guys need. He understands that this is his responsibility. It's just one of these things where, the Freeman Centennial School had very, very minimal beds and plantings. And, and didn't, and it's all new, and some of it, I didn't want to touch this area because I wasn't sure, I didn't want to just, do anything in this area and have that, void a warranty or, step on the general contractor's toes, that blah, 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 And now it's, I mean, from a landscaping standpoint, I mean, everything touching the school is pretty much done. I mean, there's not, I mean, except for some warranty items on some plants. I mean, there's not, none of the beds are, they're going to, we got them to do their last weeding at the groundbreaking. So that was the last time, the general contractor was willing to,
Well, I was gonna say, the center of town looks very nice right now with all the pavers and the
Yeah.
Right.
roads that,
And
Yeah.
DPW, in fairness to them, they've been stretched pretty thin, doing final paving for us and painting the lines and all the new parking to try to be up and ready to open.
Right,
So-
exactly.
And getting the sidewalks down on the access road. So there's been a lot of work going on this summer.
Yeah,
so.
plus all the paving they've done around town
Right.
and, like you said, the rotaries and putting in the cobbles and things like that. I mean, there's, it's been great. I'm very, very happy as a Norfolk resident to have some of the roads paved finally. So it's, there's still plenty more to get paved, but at least it's
like up by
at
my
least
place.
at least it's going the right way as opposed to, another summer with nothing, so,
So I'm in favor of setting that $1,000 as our ceiling right now. Obviously, you know, if all the bids are consistent and they're close to that,
Yeah.
we can adjust it. But, yeah, I'd make a motion that we do that and get some bids, see what
Okay.
these guys want to say.
okay.
And I think the intent being a one-time, come
Yeah.
in, clean it
Yeah.
up, and then develop a long-term plan for, with the Department of Public Works of how it'll be maintained going forward. You know, and again, the $1,000 I'm thinking is not part of our operating budget. It was, came in over the summer because we rented the space, so it makes sense to put that back to building needs.
Right,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and, you know, HL of Days, you know, has, you know, some of the same issues. It's not nearly as bad because it's not as dramatic, and the playground in the back is actually managed by Conservation, and we pay them a certain amount every year. And Kelly was on the budget board when we, you know, when we made that agreement, and they take care of all the, you know, blowing out all the, you know, irrigation system and everything like that, and it's relatively, I mean, I think we kick in like $750 a year, and, you know, they handle the rest of it, and they do all the day-to-day operations, just because it was based on the elevations, the topography, and all the different plants they had in there. DPW wasn't able to do a good job. I mean, they're not landscapers. I mean, they're big-scale mowers, big field sort of thing, so. But I think that's one of the things that I've talked to Jack about is if, you know, we do go down this line and they're able to, you know, get rid of the, you know, subcontractor and create a new plan, is, you know, they're going to have to buy some new equipment that are, you know, more correct size for the space here. You know, like, you know, in the back we have some of the valleys and the hills. Why the architect designed little valleys and hills in the topography is beyond me. But nevertheless, the big mowers, you know, can't just go over them because they scalp them and everything like that. So they need to, you know, those need to be done with little mowers and, you know, things like, you know, just silliness. But, you know, and the other problem DPW has is they can't use pesticides because they're not licensed to do that. So, you know, so one of the things I suggested about was, you know, Eastern Landscape does a lot of stuff, you know, like all the greenway has to be organic, so they use vinegar, you know, for most of the weed kill. You don't have to worry about any, you know, any pesticides, any contamination, anything like that. And he's like, it does 90% of the job that a Roundup would do. So it's
Well, yeah, we'll have to make sure, because if they put any pesticides down, we have public notice. We have to give public notice.
right. Well, that's the reason vinegar is not a pesticide.
Right, so
Yeah,
we
whereas-
just have to make sure whoever we bring in, if they
Right.
put anything
Yeah.
down, we follow those
It
guidelines.
shouldn't cost too much to get one of those guys certified. That's not our,
Well, I was gonna say, it's just anything with the state. Once you add it to the state, I mean, it's just, you know, getting a private company to get a guy certified is completely different than a state certification. So we have a motion to get bids for a landscaper to do weeding general cleanup to be capped at $1,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And last but not least, the MASC conference. I just kind of wanted to bring this up, was from the standpoint of, we're all reserved for 2 nights. And two,
Was what we did, right? 2 people each.
no, we have 3.
Oh, every-
Yeah, we have
3 rooms,
3 rooms
sorry.
and 2 nights, 2 nights each. I'm not going to go down for 2 nights. So I already asked Pam, I mean, so I had her put in here the schedule. You know, I'm going to go down for Wednesday and Thursday, and then just come back Thursday night. You know, because the things on, you know, on Friday morning don't necessarily, you know, aren't the things that I was, you know, the panel, you know, a lot of it's the MASC division meetings, and then you have a couple panel discussions, and then the, you know, leadership under fire from the Battle of Gettysburg. I mean, I was like, all right, that one's not, you know, I'm not getting, I personally am not getting a lot out of that. So what I wanted to do was just, it's Kelly and Jeff, right? You're going to the conference and Jeff's going to the conference? Okay. Just, all right, if you're going to definitely do, you know, all 3 days or 4 days or whatever, you know, keep the room. But if you're not going to do all 3 days, you know, let Pam know. So we only have to go down for 1 room.
Okay,
you know, as I say, you know,
so what is the cutoff date to let you know?
for the hotel.
As soon as you know.
Yeah. So that way we can just do that. I mean, it's, you know, and if push comes to shove, I don't mind sharing a room with anyone. I mean, I don't care. Kelly and I can spoon. That didn't entice you at all?
Is it like jacuzzi?
Kelly's
not even
pushing a little
going there.
further over. That's the reason there's a blank chair here.
Are we getting like suites with jacuzzis or hot tubs?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, of course. And the rooms aren't terribly expensive, but I just don't want to waste any,
Money, yeah.
any money if we don't have to.
Especially with our budget being so tight.
Oh, okay. Okay, so,
But we can
All right.
add, I think if everybody just looks and decides
yeah.
what you want to do.
What exactly
get
want to
back
do.
to us.
So yeah, I'm only going to do Wednesday night, myself personally, so just take,
Yep.
so.
Perfect.
All right, and that is all I have
Okay.
for now.
All right. If everybody's okay with it, I'm going to adjust the order. I have a whole bunch of things to update you on, but we also have Tony Davis here from our SAC program who wanted to present to the committee tonight some information about enrollment and some recommendations about possibly capping enrollment to preserve the quality of the program. So because Tony has to be here very early to meet the kids that come, I want to let her go first, if that's okay with everybody.
Yep.
All right, so Tony, you want to come on up? You can go, that's fine?
Do you-
If you want to sit
If you
right
wanna
in
sit
the
down,
end,
you
we
can do that.
pass the
Yeah.
microphone over to you.
Thank you.
Use mine.
So Dr. Alardi and I had met over the summer to discuss our enrollment, and I had some concerns based on the numbers at the end of the previous school year and the numbers that we were projecting for this school year. Not since September of 2007 had we put a cap on the enrollment in our program. But the numbers have proven that the quality of the program is being compromised because of the number of children who are enrolled. And so when she and I met, the numbers were at a good point, but now they're increasing. They've actually increased quite a bit even since the time that she and I met and since I submitted this last week. So I just wanted to seek approval from you to put a cap on some of our numbers in each individual program so that it doesn't get out of hand like it did at the end of the previous school year.
And that's really in terms of, Tony, you can expand a little bit. When she's talking about the impact on program quality, the more students you have with the ratio of students to staff, you end up having to do more whole group games than small group centers. So it's a staffing issue and a space issue as well.
Well,
So,
I would presume space issue is probably more, I mean, you can always hire more staff, but if you don't have the space, there's not a whole lot you can do with it.
Exactly, and even with using the cafeteria space over at the HL of Day School and having, the adequate amount of staff, it still gets to a point where there are just too many children in the space and their individual needs aren't being met.
So, could you help me understand how you came about these limits?
Sure. So,
Familiar with it?
So the Department of Education advocates 1 to 13. So for our morning program at the HL of Day School, I have a cap of 26. So I actually do have 3 staff members scheduled to work. But what that allows me, by capping it, is to make sure that if someone is out and I'm not able to find a sub, that I still have adequate staffing in the morning. Some of the other numbers are based on space. So for our before-school program here at the Freeman Kennedy School, we use our own space that we have down by the gym. And most times we're able to use the gym halfway through the morning to allow the kids to get some energy out and to split up the group. But on days when we don't have access, there actually aren't even enough chairs in the room to accommodate as many kids as we have. So 36 is the max number of seats that we have in the space. So that's where that number came from. Our kindergarten group, We've gone up as high as 18 children, but I find that, again, the quality of the program is compromised at that point. Especially, it's a long day for a lot of them. And, I find that 15 is a manageable number. When you start to get any higher than that, I just feel like there's just too many children in the space, and again, their individual needs aren't being met.
And how many staff do you have for that?
I currently have 2. I'm actually in the process of looking at a third because our numbers have almost doubled in the last few weeks.
Okay.
And same thing with the other programs we talked about, the after-school program held in the cafeteria over at the HLF Day School. As the numbers get closer and closer to 30, it's too many kids for the space. And again, the spacing issues that we have over here, and just if we're not able to use some parts of the school in the afternoon, we're limited to that one room, and it can be difficult.
Okay.
And how's your profitability currently? Is it break even, making money? losing?
Making money, we've been in the black for quite a few years now, and that's one hesitation to putting a cap on our enrollment is, we have been doing well for so many years, and a lot of it has to do with not having a cap and just being able to allow people to join the program all throughout the school year. So it's worked to our benefit up until this point in time, but because now, as you mentioned before, the number of people who are enrolled in the schools, or, it carries over into our program as well. So, we're getting close to the numbers we were at years and years ago, and that's when we had a cap. So I'm getting back to that point where I need to do that again.
And are any of the programs currently over cap? I mean, would you have to cut anybody?
No. Nope.
Okay. So it just would be new people coming in?
Yes, and I would make current families aware that we were putting caps, because I do have families who make changes throughout the school year. So if it was decided that we were going to go forward with this, I would need to make them aware of that so that they could plan ahead in case they were planning to add days as the school year goes on. Okay. And we do have a lot of families who will add a day here and there outside of their schedule, and so I also need to keep that in mind, because for the past few years, that hasn't been an issue. If you contact me with 24 hours notice and let me know that you need to add a day, I'm able to do that. But if we put a cap, I'm going to have to turn some people away in those situations.
Yeah, that's probably something you don't want to do either.
No.
I wouldn't, as a parent, I wouldn't want to have that unfortunate situation, because who do you cap? I mean, is there any possibility to get facilities that are larger or add on space? I don't know if we have any space limitations or not, but you mentioned some of these reasons were because of space.
Yeah.
Not necessarily staffing.
Right. So on days when particular parts of the building aren't available to us, I will work with the office, and I'll also work with the custodians just to find other space in the school that we might be able to use. But I also have to keep in mind that we have a system in place and a security system in place for each of our programs, so that families have a code to get into the building, and they have a sign-out procedure. So, it's a little bit of an
Difficult
inconvenience.
to add
and it's-
additional space because of the security piece. And
Yeah.
they're already using at HOD the art room, the cafeteria. They have a separate entrance with the keypad. So it's difficult to open it up to, the entire building, again, for security issues.
Yeah.
And this has a separate entrance here at SAC that's contained between that and the gym. I think, though, Tony, when she developed this, pretty much every program right now has quite a bit of room to add additional kids. I mean, there's only a couple with a couple of days where you're close to the limit. So you see, she's given you the numbers of kids she has in the program Monday through Friday and the limit. So there's the before school for K to 2, you can add about 10 kids, multiple days. So there's still some flexibility. We're just looking at the outer limits
Right.
of what would be manageable. The only ones that are really kind of close would be the after-school first and second grade group on particular days, Tuesdays, and the third and fourth grade group on Tuesdays and Thursdays is close to the cap.
Yeah, before school at Freeman Kennedy is already at the cap on Monday.
On Monday.
And then, and I was going to say, and I presume kindergarten is one of those things that, probably has bumped up since then, you wrote this from the standpoint of,
Surprisingly, yes.
yeah.
Over the summer, we were at about 6.
Right.
And now our biggest day is 13, and that's happened within just the past few weeks.
Right, because, as people, it's new, they're new to the school, new to the system, talking to other parents, and, as a parent who utilizes SAC, I want to, compliment Tony for, all the hard work she does, and it's a phenomenal program. The staff is great, they're right on top of things. The security is great. My kids love it. I mean, they would rather, they get mad when I pick them up, so, which is a good thing. So, and a lot of other parents I know feel the same way. So you guys do a phenomenal job, and wanted to just thank you for that. So I would move that we would just allow these caps to go into place and then revisit. Once we start bumping up to it consistently, if we could revisit it and see if there's any other, if there's a huge outcry. I mean, if it's, one person here and there, it's not a big deal. But if it becomes a huge issue, maybe we could look into doing, if there's other things, forming a partnership with the Adirondack Club or, the Wise, a lot of other different, ancillary programs and things like that if there becomes a huge issue. But,
Yeah, I think if you get into a situation where you have a large wait list of parents seeking services, we can always revisit.
Right. So, is there a second? Or a wink? You want me to spoon with you now, is that? Any further discussion? I always forget these things are being taped. This is just going to come back and haunt me for years to come.
I was going to remind you that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jen.
And you can take off, and you don't have to stay for our exciting. Roxanne, on the other hand, has to stay all night long.
Okay, so I have several things that I wanted to update the committee on. First was just a general update on the opening of schools. The opening of schools really went very, very smoothly. We were really happy with it at both buildings. Teachers have been in throughout the summer getting classrooms set up, getting them ready for the kids. The arrival and dismissal went seamlessly at both HOD and Freeman Kennedy. Kids were in their classrooms by 8:55 that first day, so, surprisingly, it just went without a hitch. We are having a little bit of a difficulty with the afternoon buses. They're arriving late to pick kids up, and that has to do with some glitches in the middle school runs and their dismissal. They come to us after middle school. Not significantly late, but they're about 5-10 minutes behind when we typically would expect them. So we're working with that middle school on that, and we think that's going to be cleaned up very quickly. They're getting into their new routine there as well, so dismissal's taking longer.
Is that a Holmes issue, or is that a middle school issue?
It's middle school dismissal holding
Okay.
up. It's not efficient the first couple of days that they run it, and so the kids are later loading, which puts the drivers behind.
Okay.
But it hasn't been significant. It's been about five minutes later than we usually see them. So we're going to watch that, but we're working on that with the middle school.
Just real quickly on the busing.
Yeah.
Do we run into any issues or concerns about the number of children on the bus?
We got one call the other day that a parent was concerned about the number of students on a bus that was loading at HOD. We called Holmes. The bus's capacity is 77, right?
Yes.
And there are only 57 students on the route. So what we did was ask, was it a bus that loaded first here, right?
Yes.
So the older kids are getting on and spreading out among the seats, and so the kids loading second were crowded. So they got on the bus and they addressed that, so that we have the kids, the older kids loading the back of the bus. So we don't have any buses that are over their assigned capacity.
And is it supposed to be 2 to a seat?
3 to a seat for the younger kids, I believe, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you couldn't fit 2 of me in that one of them. So,
There's zone for 77.
So that 77 is 3 per seat?
For you can have 3 of the little guys, like the kindergartners, they fit 3 to a seat. The older kids with their backpacks and stuff are mostly 2 to a seat. But you can have.
How do you come up with the 77?
Is that assuming all little kids?
No, that's just what they told us the capacity of the bus was, 77. I don't know the number of seats in there.
If there's a breakdown for the little kids versus big kids?
Yeah.
I know in particular on our route that my youngest daughter is on, it's extremely packed in there, and they raised concern for me is they're 3 to a seat, but they also carry the big backpacks too. I wasn't under the impression that you could even have 3 to a seat. I didn't know if there's some kind of anyway, that's a question more for Holmes.
Yeah, I can follow up, but I'm pretty sure that the capacity is 3 to a seat. But I'll double check if they have any further guidance on that.
It's a big free-for-all, there's no seat belts or anything
Yeah,
anyways.
well,
Yeah, I just don't.
Probably safer being packed in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I will check with Holmes and get back to you. Okay. The other thing, in terms of the opening of schools, obviously, we do have some construction work going on both buildings. The DPW was doing final paving and painting for us the week that we opened. But they really worked around the school schedule, so they came and did the line painting midday. Really didn't seem to cause any disruption to the traffic flow, parent drop-off, anything like that. And they have pretty much completed that at this point. The Freeman Kennedy has some final construction for Phase 3 going on. They're going to be putting fencing around the outside playfield. We also have a contractor coming in to put the playground equipment in. The projected completion date for that is October 14th. I just got that right before I got here, so that should be installed, and once that's installed, they'll remove the construction fencing around the play area. At HOD, actually, I'll jump ahead, the HOD playground construction has started. We had some difficulty getting the contractor on site. They got delayed in the prior project that they were working on, but they started with us on Monday. The excavation he's expecting to take, he originally thought a week. He thinks it's going to be about a week and a half. There's more brush and more trees that they have to take down than they thought. But we have a meeting with the landscape architect and the general contractor on that project on Friday. He expects to have the site ready to be inspected again next Friday, and then the equipment installation will start right after that. The projected finish date for that is also October 14th. And that would be to be complete. So once the equipment comes in, they're coming back to put the playground surfacing, and then they'll be doing the walking trails and the field irrigation system. There's one change order on that project. We're also having him get Northeast to put the well for the irrigation system, and we've got quotes on that. So that work might be done after the project completion date because it's a change order, but the rest of the project is scheduled to be done by the second week of October. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, actually, I'll go down to safety. We have made quite a few changes based on, we had a couple of things happen last year. We had a gentleman, John LaFond, who came to do a security walkthrough of both schools and make some recommendations on things that we could do to enhance and strengthen security, from a couple different perspectives. We have some structural changes that we've made that are in process. We did, based on the results of that report, we are putting panic alarm buttons in both the main office here in Freeman Kennedy and in the superintendent's office. And at the HOD, there'll be 2 panic buttons installed in the special education office and in the main office there. Those will be linked with police and fire so that if there was ever a critical incident and somebody hit the panic button, they'd be alerted. It also connects with our alarm system so that the fire alarms or an automatic announcement can be made throughout the building. So we're leveraging that technology. So those are happening. We're also adjusting and putting additional locks in some of the interior doors in the buildings based on that report. I won't go into greater depth for security purposes, but those things are happening. The other thing that we did, I attended several roundtable discussions and conferences with Chief Stone last year. The district attorney's office made funding available for grants, cell phone capacities. Then what they also do is they do traffic pattern designs, they do staging areas for families for critical incidents, and they basically are going to put together a flip book, and that's really for first responders, because if we ever had a critical incident here, Norfolk police will come, but police from all other neighboring towns will be arriving on site. And so what MetroLec does is put together the materials they would need to automatically respond. So anybody walking in from the police force would have access to immediate building map, phone numbers that they need, communication systems information, where they would, if they're assigned to traffic detail, where they should stage that, where they're directing parents to. So that's what MetroLec is putting together for us. Additionally, we are looking to make some minor adjustments to our own emergency protocols. That's not something for open session because of security purposes, but we are making some adjustments. And what I can share is that we are working with the police, and we are anticipating that on our staff development day in December, I believe it's December 11th, that we're going to do a joint practice drill with the police so that they have an opportunity to practice their response to a critical incident, and we have an opportunity to practice our new procedures. So I think as far as building security, we're in a really good position. I think we have made some significant changes and have worked really closely with police and fire and other outside agencies. I think having the Metro plans in place puts us in a really good position should anything ever unexpected ever occur. And, you know, we're going to continue to look at that and refine that as the year goes on.
I got a question. When
Yeah.
we run that drill, is it okay, like, I would love to be there to see how it's done, just as a representative of the school committee.
I would have to talk to the police about it and see, you know, who they anticipate being involved in that. They do want it, they're thinking about possibly inviting some other town police forces to participate so they can practice that kind of, set it up as a drill for them. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't be a possibility, but I'd want to talk with Glenn
That's
Eichel.
fine.
Now, obviously, where it would just be, you know, school committee and
Right.
staff.
Need to keep it
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
contained. I understand. But I always like
Yeah.
to see how these things are going, so I know what we're working with.
Yep, I can certainly talk to Glenn Eichel about that once we confirm the date.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And the only other thing I had that I wanted to mention is that I will be, we started a parent leaders group that met monthly last year, and really it was an advisory board for me to give me feedback on, you know, concerns parents had, how we were doing. I really enjoyed the meetings. I learned a lot from it, and we will be starting that group again. I will send an email out to all the parents that I currently have that have registered for that, but certainly we're opening it. So if anybody else is interested, I'll put the dates up on the website and send it out and connect that in the next, probably in the next week or so. So we'll get that group up and going again.
And are we still looking for parents for school council as well?
I believe HOD has some openings for school council.
Okay.
They are advertising that through
Okay.
Connect Ed as well. Okay, that's all I had.
Good. All right, committee reports. Let's see. NESC, nothing new on that. They're going to be doing their fundraising with the Norfolk T-shirts. Those will be, they're working on the best way to distribute and get those out to the public and take orders on those. KP?
Don't have anything for KP. I unfortunately missed the last meeting because I was out of town on business.
KP's doing well.
They're doing
back
fine.
in school. All right.
Overall, there's nothing new.
Kelly, budget?
Other than what we discussed earlier in the meeting about putting together some discussion items for the fall town meeting, I've got nothing else to add.
Technology?
Subject to hearing back from Mike, I'm looking forward to starting off in October for
Okay.
our first meeting. But I just need to confirm that with them first.
We actually met today to look at the district funds to determine how many people we could have, because this technology steering committee is a stipended position.
Oh, okay.
So we're anticipating it to be a committee of 8 people, 4 classroom teachers, a special education representative, a school secretary, a paraprofessional. So it'll be 8 members on that team with Mike as well and some administrators. So they're finalizing membership, and I know he will be in touch with you. He was over at Town Hall most of today, so
Yeah, I heard.
back and forth. So,
Did not make it to my office, so.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think he was dealing with a public safety issue.
No, I was going to say, yeah, it was all public safety today. Policy Subcommittee, we have a third reading for the acceptable use policy.
I had one recommended change on that.
Okay?
On page 6, it says photographic images of students may be published on an MPS webpage unless the parent or guardian has expressly requested that the student's image not be taken and/or displayed. And it says by completed the privacy form. I would recommend that we change that by notifying the school in writing
Okay.
instead of sending a form home.
Perfect.
And then I attached, and they have a copy of this, right? Okay. I'll just read to you what we would change in the handbook.
So we have that.
Oh, okay, yes, you do. So
You're
I
so
would,
efficient.
so in lieu of having a form that people put in, we would just notify, and I took
Sure.
this from other handbooks.
All right.
That they have to notify the school in writing.
Okay, perfect.
What page was that?
Page 6.
Page 6, and it's number 1. So I'm recommending we take off by completing the NPS privacy and photography form, which we don't have, and changing it to say by notifying the school in writing.
Try page 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's on my draft page.
Nope,
Oh.
Nope,
okay,
it's not.
sorry.
yep, I don't have.
I'll
a nu-
find it
I
for you,
don't
hold
have
on,
a
it's
number
on my
1.
draft.
Section 4. Section 4, but it's not number 1. It's section 4.
Yeah, I'm sorry, he changed the format for my draft, so let me just see. Yeah, it is number 1
Oh,
under
number
safety
1,
procedures publishing
on
on the
page
internet.
4.
I'm sorry, it's page
Okay,
4,
4.
number 1, halfway down the page. So where it says NPS privacy and photography form.
Yep,
Take that off and say by notifying the school in writing. So it'd say displayed by notifying the school in writing.
It's confusing. So, I mean, why don't we do a subsection? Is that, it has nothing to do with 7, correct?
No, it's under safety
It's under
procedures for
safety
publishing.
procedures
No,
in
I
the next
understand,
session.
but the way it's, just doesn't seem to make sense, the way it's set up.
you're saying it should be its own subsection,
Yeah,
it's
you've
its
got,
own main
you've
section.
got 4 as a section, then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you start off at 1 again with the
Make
safety
make
procedures.
that,
So that
make
should
make
be
that
a
a,
subset.
make that 5 and then 6.
Unless that safety procedures falls into
No, that's not
something
web
else.
publishing, I mean,
Nope,
per
that's fine.
per se.
We can make it its own section. It was under web publishing guidelines in section 4, because
Right.
it was for images, but we can make it its own. That's safety procedures for the web publishing on the
Yeah.
internet.
So I guess the way it's written, it's assumed that the parents would,
And what, yeah,
the parents would know that their child's photograph was on the website prior to posting it on the website?
no.
No.
How would they inform us if,
That's, on this page that you have that goes home in the parent handbook, it says that local media and teachers may post your child's image as part of the curriculum on a regular basis. And that if parents do not want it, the legal advice we have from the attorneys was that it should be an opt-out, not an opt-in program, because
Okay.
it's a public
Opt-out.
forum, and so the newspapers can come, and so we will put in the handbook notice that your child's picture may be taken by local media, news, by the teachers, posted within the guidelines on the internet. If you want to opt out of that, you have to notify the school in writing.
okay.
I was in favor of an opt-in because I thought it would be a better thing, but I was overruled on that.
Well, the problem with opt-in is, you know, from the standpoint.
Monitoring and tracking.
Yeah, as I say, just
I would
because
think it would be the same as an opt-out because you're still tracking, instead of tracking.
very, very few people opt out.
Exactly, it's usually a handful.
Yeah, so I mean, so you only have a few.
Either way, you're still tracking whoever opted out. You're just,
It's very difficult. I mean, if you have kids, going on a field trip in a public forum and the
Yeah.
newspaper takes a picture, it's, it's public domain, so
Right.
it's difficult.
right, we don't
So,
have any control or something like that. We're talking about like inside the school. We
Yeah.
have a school photographer
yeah,
or
But
NCTV coming in.
But even, even general assemblies and things along those lines,
Right.
if you have it, and, I don't know even how they deal with this, the kindergarten concert, NCTV films it.
Yeah.
If someone's opted out
that kid can't be part without exclusive permission.
from that
Right.
particular instance.
And we do have a.
So it's much more manageable to
we
manage
do
an
have a
opt-out.
privacy and photography.
That, we don't have a form, that's why I want to take that out. We don't have a form to fill out for that. And I think that's why we want to take out the photography form and just say by notifying the school in writing. Parents should be able to, if they have flexibility, not have to fill out a form. If they have a custody situation and a restraining, they should be able to just notify us in an email.
How
I
do
do
we-
not want my child's
how do we
picture taken.
manage that, though, if we get 10 people to say we don't want this? I don't know, I'm being
We do
picky,
monitor
but
it. I mean, if we have an
how do
assembly,
we-
that child
if we
can't
don't have a
participate.
form, How do we monitor it?
No, because we still have a list.
We have a letter. If they write a letter
Right.
and they say, I want my child, we notify the classroom teacher and we keep track of whose child's not allowed to be. And if we had an event that was going on, like an assembly, they would call that parent and say, there may be media here, do you want your child to participate or not? But it's really a handful at both buildings, 3 or 4 kids, and we just monitor and make sure that, the teacher takes lead responsibility for that, making sure that the child's not part of any group pictures or
And
anything.
how long does that, I mean, so the
Annually.
school year ends, and so every year they
It would be annually, and
I was
then.
going to say, that was my suggestion, was the only thing that.
Notify the school in writing annually.
Annually,
Yep.
because you don't want them to be like, oh, I told you last year and I didn't tell you
Yep.
an end date, so it should be forever.
Yep.
So this way, it's just annually. Okay? All right, any other discussion on this? Okay, is there a motion to accept?
Although we have to make the changes before we
No.
accept it?
No, these are,
It's-
these are
Incidental changes.
incidental changes. Is there a motion to accept the technology acceptable use policy and agreement file UNDB?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
I think
Any
he's-
discussion? Any discussion? Besides Mark being a rude finger snapper? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, moving on. Last thing, building committee update. We do have one, I have the MSBA needs a vote on, this is how you know our state of Massachusetts has too much bureaucracy. We have to have a vote to say that we will accept the transfer of our state bid savings back into the budget. So things that we've saved on throughout the year, we have to vote. So I make a motion to the school committee to vote to support the building committee's recommendation to transfer the local share of the bid savings in the amount of $1,520,491 to the owner's contingency. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, basically, through the bid, we were able to, through the bids, we were able to save a little over $3 million. Half of it's, owned by the states because, they pay for 53%, 47% goes to us. In order to have those savings, basically, we cut things in order to pay for other things. But in order to accept the savings, we have to vote to accept the savings and then put it back into the budget.
That's just weird.
School budget?
Let's add it to our policy
Town
meeting.
budget.
No,
Why not?
school building budget.
Yeah.
Building budget.
And in the school building committee has managed the budget throughout. It's a technicality that the MSBA wants the school committee to approve the recommendation of the building committee that has been managing the budget throughout the whole project. And basically what they want to do is take all this savings and put it back into the project budget to fund the change orders for things that we needed to have done, additional parking, things like that. So we have to
Yeah,
approve their
yeah, and we
recommendation.
argued with them, and it was like, all right, why, all right, fine, let's not even bother arguing. We'll do it your way. But it's like, okay, yeah, we're not going to accept the $1.5 million. We're just going to leave that on the table, so. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. In addition to that, school building committee, we are down to the wire. Our budget, according to our project manager and consultants, we have roughly $120,000 to $140,000 remaining. They're telling me that that's the worst case scenario. They're not willing to put their money where their mouth is and say that if it's not the worst case scenario, they'll eat anything additional. But that's as good as we could get out of them. So we have a few little minor items that we're still limping along on, and that includes everything that we've already projected. The playground, the fields, all that sort of stuff is all being consumed, and we'll still have $120,000 to $140,000 left over. Hopefully it'll be higher than that, but they're saying that that's the worst case scenario. So we're going to be, out of $34 million, pretty much down to the last few pennies at the end, because there will be ancillary little things, and state bid contract, there's no such things as nickels and dimes. They're all fives and 10,000s. And, the amount, I won't even get started on some of the frustration and some of the costs that just are not, in good conscience, I just, just drives me absolutely crazy, some of the waste that's done by the state on how they set some of these projects up. But nevertheless, the state's paying for 50% of it, so we have to do it their way. So, despite the waste, I guess we're still ahead of the game. But it is just frustrating seeing, the bureaucracy and having to jump through hoops for, no particular reason and do things that are, 3 times when you could do it once and it'd be cheaper and better. So that's it for that. All right, so the final, final decision item is school committee minutes. Did anyone have any clarifications or changes? Okay, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. And the next school committee meeting is October, I didn't bring my phone in, so. You have your-
October 8th.
October 8th it is.
That's a Tuesday, right?
Yes.
We're back to Tuesdays, okay. Work fine for you, Kelly?
Yes.
Nowhere exotic?
I'm not allowed to travel anymore, it's my wife.
Oh, really?
Yep,
Well, that's good.
probably not a comment for the camera.
But too late.
He was kidding.
But he's very excited about that
April
ability
Fools.
not to travel.
I'm okay with that, yeah. October 8th works.
October 8th, okay, so October 8th at 7 PM. And last but not least, I'd like to make a motion to move into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. In addition, to discuss strategy in respective to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, which I declare, and not to convene an open session. So we will not return to open session. It needs to be, since we're moving into, since it goes to a roll call vote.
Yes.
Mark Flaherty, yes.
Kelly Peterson, yes?
Sean Dooley, yes. All right, thank you very much.